Hey everybody, we're back again with the live watch parties at the Blacklist Exposed. I am Troy Heinrichs, and with us tonight is my awesome esteemed fellow co-host, drinking already, which is awesome, Mr. Aaron Peterson.
It was sugar water. How's it
You're
going?
you're just trying to get in the Ressler kind of mood, right, with his addiction problem. Is that the deal?
Aren't we all addicted at this point? I mean, I've been stuck inside for quite some time.
Well, you guys hear us talk about the podcast every single week over at theblacklistexposed.com. Make sure you go ahead and go over there to subscribe to the podcast and download tonight's episode, which will come out right after the show is over. But before we even watch the show, we have a real special guest tonight. Tonight's writer of the episode, Brothers, which is 718, might be confusing. It's airing a little bit out of order, but it doesn't matter because it's a fantastic episode. You can't tell. So let's welcome in Sean Hennen, direct from the writer's room. Sean, man, how's it going, brother?
It is going well. Hello, quarantined Blacklist fans. It is hello from still daytime Los Angeles. People watching on the East Coast.
How's the smog? Is it good?
It is. We have clearer skies than we have ever had here on the West Coast. It is actually kind of nice. Nothing is open, and you can't go anywhere without a mask. But the air is blue and beautiful.
Z Hartley was on a few weeks ago for this, and he said he heard birds sing for the first time.
Oh yeah, we've had a lot of birds. It's been interesting. No traffic. It's like a whole new city.
I saw a friend of ours drive down Hollywood Boulevard the other day, and the Chinese Man Theater saying "No people." It was that is so strange.
It is. It is weird. It is weird to think about this city like that. It's weird to think about New York, where we shoot, people not being able to be outside. It's a city that never sleeps, but it's napping right now.
Well, speaking of sleeping, we're not sleeping tonight because this is an episode I think people have been waiting for 7 seasons.
Weird transition, but all right.
Yeah.
They definitely want to see Diego's backstory, Mr. Donald Ressler. I guess, first of all, talk a little, because maybe people don't know who you are, Sean. Why don't you talk about a little bit, how did you come to the Blacklist? Because you kind of came in through a backdoor angle in a way, because there was a spinoff show that used to happen about the Blacklist back in the day that you were kind of in charge of in a way.
Yes. So I was on the Blacklist Redemption, which was the spinoff, and that lasted for 8 episodes. And when that wrapped up, there was an opening on the mothership, as I refer to it. And I was very kindly invited over from that staff to keep on going with the universe of the Blacklist and to continue. And my one sort of crowning moment that I was very proud of, the first season that I was on the Blacklist proper, was getting to bring over Scotty Hargrave with me from that show and give her a send-off in an episode called Ruin that I wrote in season 5, it would have been, which was a favorite of mine, probably of all the ones that I've done until tonight.
Well, that's a good entry. You know, I guess I won't say anything because I've never been a great Tom fan, but I did like that show. That was a fun concept that you guys did with Redemption in terms of how you took it and made it like a spy thriller.
It was fun. It was definitely, so I hadn't worked in the Blacklist before. I hadn't worked on the show. Mm-hmm. And the angle that they went with for Redemption was more of, we kind of had this fun split screen Mission Impossible kind of vibe. The old school Mission Impossible, the show back in the day. Nobody was crashing helicopters or anything like Tom Cruise does these days. And it was fun. It was a caper kind of show, and I had a lot of fun with it. Loved the writers that I worked with, and then when they invited me over, I had no idea that I would have been. I mean, here we are. That's 1 year of that show and 3 years of the Blacklist mothership. So I've been welcomed with open arms, and I've stayed.
What's been the difference for you? Because as a writer, those are two completely different genres, really, which is kind of cool that they would bring in an original writer for Redemption, because you don't want them too stuck in how Blacklist was done. So you get to come in Redemption, but then you do Blacklist, it's a completely different genre of sorts. Was that an easy transition for you? Or, I mean,
it was actually because these two staffs worked so closely together Obviously, John Bokenkamp, John Eisendrath, who run the Blacklist, were integral to that spinoff that I was so familiar with them and had spent so much time with them, even though it was a different show, sort of brought under their wing, that when I transitioned over to the main show, when the spinoff was finished, I really didn't miss a step. That it was the way that they run the writer's room, the way that they break story and figure these episodes out, I had gotten used to, even being over there in the spinoff. And the transition was pretty easy. And they've been great. They welcomed me in, and I think that they appreciated all the work that we had done, that staff on Redemption, and have kept me ever since. So I have to say thank you to John and John, wherever they are out there.
So what was it about this particular script that we're going to see tonight that drew you into wanting to write for Diego specifically? I know fans always speculate that you guys have favorites and writers. This writer writes for Tom, this writer writes for Liz. So what was it about Diego's story, and why did this one kind of land in your lap?
I'll tell you exactly why. I've gotten very lucky the 3 seasons I've been on the show. I already mentioned Ruin from the first season.
I love Ruin. I love Ruin.
And, that was a lot of fun. Yep. That was my very first script on the main show.
It's a great episode.
And I've been lucky that they've given me these sort of standalone or one-off episodes just about every season. I was joking with another writer that I have the most no number episodes because they're so specific of any of the seasons we've had or any of the writers that we've had. And so getting a chance to do that every so often, to take a story like Ruin, or to take a story like earlier this season, Kuwait, which was the script that I wrote, and tonight's episode of Brothers, and kind of get to tell these sort of standalone thriller of the week, kind of like little mini 42-minute movies that definitely have obviously the DNA of Blacklist in their veins and all the same characters that we love, but get to be a little bit weird and go a little bit left of field than the typical episodes that keep the plot driving and keep the story elements going. And when I knew that they were going to finally answer some of these questions about Ressler, I was excited to hop on board. I didn't know the answers before, they invited me in and we started working on the episode and then sitting down to write the script. But it was a chance to do something different and have a little bit of fun and get to spend, almost a whole hour in Donald Ressler's point of view, and then to meet this brother character who's only been sort of vaguely mentioned along the way, but really get to create that character, not from scratch, but to get to kind of build that and then build their relationship was a lot of fun. I mean, it was an exercise in the creative parts of my brain, but it felt unique and it felt special to get to do that.
How'd you feel when you heard Anthony Michael Hall was going to play him?
So full disclosure, Anthony came, I was either already deep into the writing or maybe had finished like the first draft of the script before, his name came down the pipeline from casting. I'm a huge Anthony Michael Hall fan through all the different decades. He's great. And he is great tonight, as everyone will see. And it really felt like perfect. I got to build the character of Robbie separate from knowing who the actor was, but when his name started getting mentioned, I got really excited. And then when we got him, it was a big deal in the office to know that he was going to come in and do his interpretation of this character, and also get to work with Diego. And get to build that rapport and see what they did in this relationship that obviously two men that have known each other their whole lives playing brothers, but kind of seeing them together for the first time in our show and in our universe. It's a lot of heavy lifting, and I think they knocked it out of the park. I really do.
Yeah, we mentioned the spinoff specifically because Aaron and I, after watching it, we were like, you know what? We could actually watch this show, these two brothers do their own cop stuff for as another spinoff. It was just amazing how they ended up working together.
It hasn't aired yet, so be careful.
Well, no, but I mean, it's that good, right?
You know,
We're in for a treat.
What was really fun and part of figuring out what this episode is, and people are going to see for themselves, is that we got to have, you know, it's the tone is a little bit specific to them. There were a lot of moments sitting in the writer's room figuring out what this world of you know, Ressler and his brother that we've mentioned and his background that we've touched upon. And there were references kind of flying around to the Coen brothers, to Elmore Leonard, like that kind of crime story that could be a little bit obviously dark, but also there's some fun there. There's some sort of twists and turns, and getting to apply that inspiration to a story that got to stand on its own 2 feet was a lot of fun.
Well, go ahead, Aaron. If you have
I do, because I know we only have a couple minutes.
Yeah, a couple minutes.
So this is one that writers always get asked, like but when you have an actor like somebody who's basically revered in acting circles, what did he bring to your script that was unique, that you hadn't really, or anything that he brought that you would say was a little bit different of a play than you expected? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Anthony.
Without spoiling,
Anthony was going to be great. But the character as written, and obviously as portrayed on screen, it's a tough character. It's somebody who has to, I mean, just in the storytelling alone, you have to kind of invent an entire character in one episode and do it rather quickly. It had to be an actor that could immediately build that sort of rapport with Diego, because they're brothers, because of that relationship. And he also, I mean, Robbie is as people will find out, is a complicated character. There's good side and a bad side to him, and to walk that fine line and still be still be lovable, but maybe a little bit of a screw up, is tough. It's tough to those are a lot of different things that you have to put together in a couple of days of shooting. And he, you know, flying colors. I knew from the moment that he was involved that he'd be able to pull it off. But it certainly was a multifaceted character, and he did a great job.
Troy and I were talking about how amazing it is that Anthony Michael Hall, you know, he comes from the 80s, the dweebiest of the dweebs, you know, and he morphs into this big dude that looks like he could just beat your ass silly at the drop of a hat. Not many actors have like made that kind of change over their career. So it's kind of cool. If you haven't seen him in a while, if you didn't watch The Dead Zone and some of the other stuff he's done, if you haven't seen him in a while and you just watch this, you're going to be surprised at who Anthony Michael Hall is these days.
After tonight's episode, if somebody's an Anthony Michael Hall fan and wants to go back and visit, I would highly recommend Edward Scissorhands, because I in his career, that particular film, it was like you saw a side of him and a physique in him that had not existed before that. And it's also, it's a great performance. It really is.
I'm a big fan of Out of Bounds. I don't know if you ever saw it.
I have not seen Out of Bounds.
I love Out of Bounds. Yeah, he did Out of Bounds years ago. It's a small film, but
I was just excited to see him on the Goldbergs as Adam's counselor the last couple episodes.
Oh, that's right.
This season. So he comes in that biker suit, and it's like, is that Anthony Michael Hall? Holy crap.
Like, he shows up, and whenever he's there, he's incredibly memorable. Even in something where he's only maybe in a few scenes like The Dark Knight, and is great. You know that you're going to get something special from him.
Show's starting.
Yeah. So we're here with Sean Hennen from the Blacklist Room. The way this works, we'll actually watch the show. We'll come back at the commercial breaks, talk a little bit about what we just saw, and we'll have some more fun as the evening progresses. You never know who's going to stop by, so stick around. Aaron Peterson, Troy Heinrich from the Blacklist Exposed. Enjoy Brothers, everybody. We'll see you in about 10 to 12 minutes.
Enjoy.
Black Hole Sun.
Yeah.
Such a great song.
There goes the whole music budget.
Yeah.
It was crazy that you were able to get that one off. But I think the bigger question is don't you know how to actually kill people, Sean? When you buy cleaning supplies and burying supplies, you have
a
to
murder
go
kit.
to multiple different stores so that the guy in the store is like, hey, are you burying a body? What are you doing with all that chlorine bleach?
That's more scenes and screen time, though.
They're in a bit of a time crunch, you know.
Yeah.
They have to work fast and loose on this one.
I was kind of hoping he'd say it was a murder kit. That's what I was hoping.
If anybody was familiar with them, it'd be somebody on Raymond Reddington's task force.
Yeah.
They know how to dispose of a body properly at this point.
And I have to acknowledge that Troy was correct. People that listen to the podcast, which isn't out yet, it'll be out when this episode's over. But he and I debated. I swore that Markin shot him right at the end, but no, the perp shot him and he just let him die. My bad. I was wrong.
Yeah,
I
I was given a lot of free reign, and I mean everyone was involved in figuring this story out. But we did have a couple of things that have been peppered in along the seasons that we knew that we had to build to, and one of them was the idea that this crooked cop and how his father was killed, and sort of that little explanation. I off the top of my head cannot remember what season it was when Ressler gives us that story. Maybe 3 or 4.
He was talking to Hitchens, I think.
Yeah. We know just enough of his backstory that we had some goalposts, some mile markers along the way that we knew that we could hit as it went along, and then everything else, we sort of got to have a lot of fun and build the best story we could, knowing that there are things that we've said and need to be make sure that you address everything.
And
yeah, Aaron and I do the Westworld podcast, the fans know, and there's a lot of times where in Westworld there's like things in the background that add to the enhancement of the show.
Easter
eggs. So what are you in? Let's talk about the bedroom scene. He comes in, he's got license plates on the wall, he's got all this stuff. How much of that is you saying, hey, take a notice of this, versus the set decorator people taking your words and just doing with it what they want to do with it? How much of that is written in by the writers?
I mean, there was definitely, I'm trying to remember the exact words that were on the page. I mean, our set decorator, set deck does a great job in building these things out. What was most important and what was definitely there on the page was showing differences in the two brothers just visually. Obviously to build this new character of Robbie and to tell their story in 42 minutes is quick. So a lot of the time, there has to be shorthand, and some of the visuals can really help with that. Seeing Ressler's side of the room versus seeing Robbie's side of the room. One of the big things that came out was from production was the car that Robbie drives. I know that it's a great car, and I'm sitting there writing the script, and the car obviously is a plot point that he has this fancy car that he's driving, and I think that it was scripted to be a nice BMW or nice Mercedes or something like that. And then props comes back, and they were looking at some cars, and they said, "Wait a minute, can we show you a photo of this vintage car we found? What if instead this guy who's supposedly doing fairly well for himself really put back together this gorgeous muscle car instead of buying something brand new?" And that was the perfect example of, I hadn't thought of that, and that hadn't occurred to me on the page or when it was written. And that was our super talented crew knowing where to fill in those gaps, even when the writers don't, of wouldn't this be great? And then suddenly I was like, absolutely, of course that makes sense, that's who this guy would be, from Detroit. Yeah. And suddenly you have a part of his character that wasn't there before, because you've got some great people working behind the scenes.
Well, we got 2 guys that are now following the brothers. Are they somehow connected to Markin and it's a cold case? Is there something else going on? How does Red get involved in this? I guess we're going to have to wait and see. We'll be back in about 7 to 8 minutes to talk about Act 2. Take care, everybody.
Stay tuned.
We're back.
One nasty skeleton there that they're digging up, conveniently placed on a rug.
Conveniently, we did to do some research. The idea of exactly how much would remain after all those years. One of the joys of being a television writer, and especially in work on the Blacklist, is getting to Google things that will probably get me arrested someday.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Proper body disposal and questions like how long does it take a corpse to completely decompose are things cemented somewhere in an NSA tap of my computer. I'm afraid I'm innocent. I swear.
Was it like 25 years, 30 years? What is the time frame? I'm
Yeah,
trying to remember.
The idea was 25 years, and so actually it helps us in terms of there wouldn't really be any gooey bits left, and just some of the good old skeletal remains of dear old departed Tommy Markin. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thankfully he's in that rug, and that's a good carrying device. It's a good mechanism. I'm glad that was handy. That works out great.
And it's there were a lot of jokes as we were putting this together about the idea of having skeletons buried in your closet. And if you're Donald Ressler, you legitimately have skeletons buried somewhere. There was just the idea of really going for it, that these are the skeletons in his past. And for some people, sometimes it's an actual skeleton. You just got to go buy a shovel.
Hey, I got to ask a question. I was kind of curious about this because whenever you have these standalone episodes, you have a lot of the cast is kind of sidelined for the week. Are they bothered by that? I mean, are they like, oh, I'm not part of this episode. What the heck? Or are they actually, it's just fun that they know they each get a turn kind of at some point.
Everybody's had the really good standalone episode. Mm-hmm. I got lucky this year to be able to do one for both Ressler and one for Cooper that he had earlier, and it is helpful. It's helpful for, James Spader gives every scene of every episode his all, and for him to, not only in front of the camera but also how heavily involved he is behind the scenes, for him to get a week off, a well-deserved week or so off. Yeah. Dear old Red deserves a little bit of a break because it ain't easy. 10 months out of the year having to play Raymond Reddington, and then some of our secondary characters and Diego's just so great, and to give him a full hour to shine, and to let him do what he does best was important, and also just a lot of fun.
And overdue too, I would say.
Yeah,
Tommy Markin's been around for a while, so we've been wanting this backstory for some time.
That's the nice thing about as we sort of as we get up here in the seasons and we start to tie off these loose ends. We get to do fun stuff. This year's been great in terms of what was the Kuwait story for Harold Cooper. Who is Detective Markin, and who is this brother back in Detroit that Ressler had? And, the dedicated fans that have been holding on to those questions all along, their patience is rewarded because finally we get to go ahead and, check off these boxes along the way, and give satisfying answers, hopefully satisfying answers.
Which hopefully then ties into their character and how it relates to how they're working with Red in the present. And then it rounds out that entire story of maybe not everybody is as great as we all think they are initially when we meet them, and everybody's got things that they've done in their past.
Yeah. Even our best characters who we thought were most spotless, especially Donald Ressler and Harold Cooper, have some things that they're that they need to make up for, and they need to pay their penance for. And so that's why these episodes, these standalones, get to be so great, and hopefully well appreciated, from the fans, that we get to lean in and fill in those gaps.
Well, we got Donnie and Robbie working to figure out what's going to happen next with this body. We know it gets buried, but what really is going on? We'll have to find out in the next act. Stay tuned, everybody, with Sean Hennen from @Blacklist Room on Twitter and the Blacklist Exposed podcast here. We'll see you back in about 6 to 7.
The
So it
car. I want that car so bad. I wish that was me stealing it.
Well, I'm glad that production actually suggested to swap out the car because we now learned that he's got this garage. I don't think a guy working in a garage owns like a Beamer. It seems like this fits more the personality of this garage ownership concept.
It does, and it works perfect with the idea that they're from Detroit. I mean, a good, old-fashioned Detroit muscle car is a thing of beauty, and now it is in the wind at the worst possible moment. We had a lot of fun with that. I mentioned earlier some of the inspirations, what we're talking about. Talking about Coen Brothers movies, talking about Elmore Leonard books, and sort of the zany isn't the right word, but sort of plot twist coming in out of left field, and that was definitely for this particular episode. Can you take 3 acts of something, the first three parts of the story, and then just have this twist come in totally out of left field, and catch these guys at the worst possible time? And it's just like, how do we make things even worse for Don Ressler than they already have been so far in the episode? And it's like, well, you got to lose the car. You got to have it take off. And there's no better time than with those remains in the trunk.
It's a good brother moment too. They're just finally getting to bond, and then they lose it just like that.
It was that relationship was interesting, getting to put that together and sort of watching it sort of ebb and flow. There was definitely a conscious effort to build to the middle of the episode and make those guys as close as they were going to be possibly, and then have that car take off around the corner. Because it's just, if only fate hadn't intervened, they were actually starting to bond a little bit. But I also, all of that stuff, they're going to digging up the body, Anthony and Diego, and that relationship, and how good they are at making that whole thing feel so lived in, and make those two guys feel like, even though Anthony hasn't been on the show before, you catch up. You catch up fast to.
Yeah, he feels like he's been a part of it the whole time. Really.
Yeah, and some of the reactions and them in that construction site and digging up the body, and obviously they're talking there at the end right before the commercial break, and starting to just warm up to each other before that twist of the car going missing. It really is. It's just. It's two great actors doing a really good job with the words on the page and making you believe it along the way.
Well, it's a great job by you too to get the brothers' nuance, because he's sitting there in the construction site, and of course he cuts his hand, and that's something like a brother would typically do, right? Like, hey, little brother, you're gonna go do all the digging. Sorry, buddy.
Yes,
like the sauce is great.
It is, and getting to let Anthony. Anthony has a lot of strengths, but definitely humor and comedy, obviously based on his resume, is one of them. And so getting to add in some fun and some zingers into their back and forth. Both the actors play them as adults and also the kids, and some of those scenes between the two very talented young actors.
Yeah, they were good. They were very good. Yeah.
Yeah, and getting them lined up so that, because you have these flashbacks against present day scenes, and two younger actors playing two older actors, and it really is a recipe. And when it comes together like it is, I feel like in this episode, it's great.
Well, I think we're about to find out what really is going on with these guys that stole the car, as Donnie and Robbie sit down and have a drink at the bar. Substance abuse, background. Probably not the greatest thing for Donald, but we'll see what happens. We'll be back here with the Blacklist Exposed and Sean Hennen from the Blacklist Room right about in 6 minutes or so. Take care, guys. Man, powerful stuff in that scene there. As you get the big reveal that Don didn't kill Tommy Markin. His brother did. What?
And we know where Hector was before the chair. So
I gotta say, best moment, biggest surprise in the making of this episode, me finding out we're gonna get Anthony Michael Hall. Second happiest moment, finding out that we were gonna get Mark Margolis. I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan.
Me too.
And what that man can do with just a few scenes, and this is coming from somebody who recently just watched, all of the dailies from the filming of the episode. He's great. He really, really is. And it was funny. We his name popped up, and I was talking to Mr. John Bokenkamp,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, if Margolis is around, let's save him. Next season, there's got to be a bad guy that we need. A couple of episodes. Bokenkamp's response was, no time like now. We don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah, you don't.
We're getting Margolis. I think that the email literally was, "We're getting Margolis," and he shows up to play Jackoff, and is a great bad guy. Just a great bad guy.
I started screaming "ding ding" as soon as the other like "ding ding ding ding."
Totally. A great scene you wrote for him too. Then it almost was like one of those Red scenes that you get with those little stories, and he's talking about plants and how they exactly do what they're supposed to do, and they're uncomplicated. And man, it just like seethed the Red story as he plays this really interesting villain, and you don't know what he's all about yet because you don't know if he's tied into Tommy's past or what have you, and maybe this was the criminal organization he was with before. So it really adds an extra level of who is this guy and how is it all related.
The stuff I love about characters like that is obviously the show and a lot of action shows like that. We've got a lot of bad guy layers, and we've certainly done our fair share of basements and warehouses, and probably everything you can imagine a bad guy has been hiding out in on the blacklist. And it's just trying to come up with stuff that's fresh. And this guy working out of a greenhouse somewhere with his plants and his flowers, it adds something. It gives it a specificity, and it gives a great actor like Mark Margolis a chance to have some props and some things to play around with. And I think it infuses the character. It definitely infuses the actors, because it feels different than maybe some of the spaces that we've seen when some of our bad guys have hung out at. And he's great. And I think it really, really works the whole way through.
And you like the subtext of the scene too, when they're standing there by the dumpsters and he's giving them I actually did this to protect you and to make you who you became today. I mean, all of that just soothes Red and Liz and their relationship, and how much he's had to sacrifice for her in order to keep her safe and make her the person she is today. Mm-hmm. So you get that tie-in, like there's almost like a bond, forming in this dialogue between the two characters and the two different pairs.
And the idea of what the character of Robbie did to protect his brother, and sort of, again, to something that we were talking about earlier, the ebb and flow of a brother's relationship. And I mean, in the present day and in the past, and trying to kind of link those flashbacks up with what's happening in the story, everything kind of building to this moment and this reveal. And what an emotional scene for that actor, and who's playing young Robbie. And it's great, and it really, really works. I think that your sympathies are sometimes with Robbie, sometimes not. And your heart breaks for him when you realize what he had to do, and how it made him the person that he is. And I think that it gets the audience on his side, and it gets Ressler on his side. There's a lot of fun with how the rest of the episode resolves itself, but that moment is that's a gut punch of an emotional scene, and I think it works. I think it works really well.
And I think all the fans are now like enraged. They're like, "Don't turn yourself in, Ressler. Where's Red? Red's got to give up." So I think we should probably get back to the show and see what happens next. Again, Sean Hennen from the Blacklist Room and us here at the Blacklist Exposed. We'll see you in about 6 to 8 minutes. Hold on tight, everybody. It's going to get good.
Great.
shootouts are always the best. And that shot that Liz has, Liz just like, hey, you, and then boom, just, that only comes from training from One Red Reddington to be able to pick off a guy that close to your target you're trying to save, or
the
has
FBI,
she saved
Troy,
him?
or the FBI. I mean, they actually have
She never finished Quantico though. Remember?
You've got a Red Reddington obsession. So, Sean, I got to ask you, when you were plotting this thing out, was it intentional? Well, it was obviously intentional, but were you intentionally trying to make it so both brothers were actually culpable in the murder?
Yes, it's the idea being that both of them have carried the weight of this, and that it's affected both of them in very different ways. I mean, specifically, if you follow along with the episode, you see that they were polar opposites of how they are as adults when they were kids, and so the idea that both of them had a hand in this, Ressler knowing a little bit less than Robbie does about what exactly went down that night, but how they started in one way, and as they got older, they hit one event and then continued on different paths. That the golden boy grows up to be the near do well screw up, and Ressler becomes the Ressler that we know. And so having them each have a hand in it was definitely sort of the middle point of that axis was super important, so that they then have to have each other's back as adults for the second half of the episode. It's just helpful that Donald Ressler has a few FBI agents on speed dial that he can call in a pinch.
Your choice to bring Liz in then, or was this a John's edition? Because I know you guys don't have like all the nuggets of the episode. They sprinkle that stuff in for you.
Very specifically, that was a conversation that took up a while, took up of the better part of a day, considering who he'd call, who Donald Ressler would call. It's such a moment that would typically in a Blacklist episode be the great, Red Reddington magic trick. And the idea being that this isn't your typical episode. This is a Donald Ressler episode, and who means the most to him, and who can he trust? And so when he picks up the phone, he'd call her, and that she would come, no questions asked. I think that that's a relationship and a decision specifically in this episode that's been well earned, based on everything we know about Liz and about Ressler over all the seasons and all the years. That you don't even need to see that scene, that you can jump in and she's just there, and everything that you think you need to know can be explained in the commercial break of he called and she came to have his back. And I think that's great writing over all the years, and that's a great set of characters to earn that.
Yeah, I love that choice. I would have actually been a little disappointed if he did call Red, because that just feels like the easy go-to, and this felt more honest, with where Ressler is now.
It felt more honest, and as we'll see in some of the scenes yet to come, it felt like the honest decision, and also felt like the emotional decision, which is we've had our shootout, we've had our brothers running around in the middle of the night, and now we have some really good character stuff left in the episode to wrap up. And specifically, one of those things is the entrance of Liz Key into the storyline.
Well, let's see how it plays out. We'll be back here, hopefully, to finish this all up for you. Enjoy the last act. Sean Hennen at Blacklist Room and us at the Blacklist Exposed. We'll see you in about 5 to 6 minutes. Man, such a great sequence.
I love that end scene, man. I love that end scene.
Oh,
Megan just crushed it.
Yeah, she's once we had all that together and I saw it for the first time, the idea that we put Liz in the second half of the episode and allowed it to build to that scene, those two things, I think it's great just as a fan, and I'm a big I want to know what happens next. But it also feels really organic to I mean, obviously things that have been building for the entire length of the show, but also in recent seasons, and that trust that's built between them. You know, there's going to be big things coming in terms of the universe of the show, and Liz is, you know, just might need some allies out there, and
Is that what we're calling it?
Is that what we're calling it?
nice.
She might need some to have to turn in some poker chips if things get real later on down the road, and sworn to secrecy on anything else. But it's good to know that she's got some good friends that have her back.
Yeah, the theory camps are always been strong with the show. The Keenler crew has always been out there vocal, and you can just see the Keenler people just like on the edge of their seat going like, do it. And then they don't, and I think it's great because the episode is called Brothers, and in this case, it feels like Ressler is more her brother than lover in that moment.
I think you could take it either way, but
you could.
You know.
If the next episode that I write is called Lovers, you guys will know that we finally went through with it. No promises.
Bravo.
I don't know what the future will hold.
Feels like an on the nose title, but go for it.
But no, that last scene, we spent a lot of time really crafting that scene, and I mentioned, you know, before the break last time or after the break last time, the idea that in a typical episode, it's Reddington who gets to show up. You know, Reddington gets to pull, you know, what I've called the magic trick, to resolve everything at the end of the episode, and to give it to Liz and everything that she's learned, and everything she's been taught along the way, to get to step in and kind of, you know, minus the hat, get to play the red role a little bit in this storyline, and she gets to pull off the body disappear, is great. Is also, you know, speaking of characters that we've built for seasons and seasons and seasons, if anybody's earned the right to show up and get to play the red role, it's certainly Liz Keene. And I think she does, you know, Megan with the role in that particular episode. It's great. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, she was wonderful. Can I ask you? I mean, I gotta figure it's daunting as a writer. You're writing. I believe it's the first episode without really Red. Not even dropping by in a shadow or anything. Was there any pressure to throw him into a scene at some point, or no? Everybody was pretty comfortable with this, and it works great. By the way, I hate to say it, but I did miss him this particular episode.
Well, we always miss Mr. Reddington.
I definitely didn't mean I don't love Raymond. Don't trash me. I'm just saying I was engaged. I was engaged in everything that was going on screen.
It's you know, we when you do episodes like this that are outside the box, and you know, I wouldn't even. It's not you call it something like a bottle episode, but certainly it's not, because they spend all night running around the city of Detroit. But you get to play by different rules a little bit. And I think that what our show does so well, even you know, this late in the game, even this many seasons in, is you know, we have our rules and we have our characters, but we have just as much fun breaking them. And when the centerpiece of your show is a character like Red, breaking rules becomes a bit of a theme, and that goes for the writers as well. So getting to have an episode like this where it's completely Reddington free, the suspense of will he show up or he won't, it carries only so far.
But when
viewers, you know, and audiences and fans see how everything plays out, and especially that last scene, that I think leans into something that I know for a fact that fans have been sort of wondering about for a while. You also forget that Red's not there because there's a lot of other good stuff going on in the foreground.
Was Diego pretty thrilled? Because I know this is a backstory that was talked about many, many years ago, and I know he's been waiting kind of for that story, just in interviews and stuff he's done, that he's been waiting for that backstory to come through. Was he pretty happy with this idea and how it all worked out?
He was. It's great. These characters are on the team. I was listing some of the other episodes that I've written, and last season there was an episode I wrote called the Osterman Umbrella Company.
Oh, that was good.
And I've sort of made a little mini career on the show of writing these episodes where the characters that are typically backing up Liz or backing up Red get to be the maestro of their own episode. If it's Cooper in Kuwait, if it's Aram on the run in the Umbrella Company, and now finally Ressler, and it really shows you. I mean, we're blessed with a great cast. Mm-hmm. And if any single one of those characters from our task force can step up and take over a whole episode, and you don't feel like you've missed a step, not even for a minute, you feel really, really grateful and fortunate that we have the characters that we do. We have the actors playing the characters that we do. And if we want to throw a curveball and do a pure Diego episode, we can't, and we know that they know their characters well enough, and are still, after seven seasons of this, still enthusiastic that if it's going to be a full hour of Diego and a full hour of Ressler, then he's going to give his best, and he did. And then the icing on the cake of all of that is going to find a guest star like Anthony Michael Hall, and then it's just at that point it's a playground. These kids in a playground having fun because those two actors bouncing off each other. Well, now we're really onto something. And that's great.
Yeah, as fans, we always come back after the show and go like, oh, this scene was great and this scene was great. I'm always curious, you wrote this, but you don't get to see it all put together. For you, what ended up being better than you even thought as you wrote it?
Oh, better than your page?
As much as I love Diego and as much as I love Anthony, and the names of the two young actors escape me at the moment as we're live, but those flashbacks and how we pieced those together in terms of younger Ressler and younger Robbie really just exceeded my expectations, because there's so much happening with these characters in the present day, and all of the things that are going on, and you bring out a great bad guy like Mark Margolis, and you forget about how much heavy lifting is getting done in these flashbacks. Sometimes flashbacks that are happening right up against present day scenes, because of how the episode's structured. And that during that last piece there of the episode, the church scene, and just the emotion that you're getting out of these younger actors to support the emotion that you get out of the familiar faces is great. And I just thought that those guys did such a fantastic job, and really just it makes the episode. It's kind of the other half. And then you also get to have fun because you get to do stuff set in the 90s. So you get to have big cell phones and black hole sun needle drops that are fun for everybody. I'm an 80s and 90s kid, so getting to go back and talk to props about like, well, how big do the cell phones have to be? What year was it again? Is just a walk in the park. It's a lot of fun.
Did you have that song picked, or did they pick it? Black Hole Sun.
That was when it comes to music, I will always take a back seat to Mr. John Bokenkamp, who has very specific tastes about music for this show, and his picks are always right on the bullseye. I wish I could remember right now. There were a few titles. I remember an email chain going back and forth. Well, what would he be listening to? And is he a Beastie Boys fan? Is he a Nirvana fan? Like what in that era? And then when Black Hole Sun came up, it was like, oh yeah, no, that's what he would be. That's what would be around right then. That's the perfect music cue for not only the time period, but also what's happening in the episode and what the emotions are, and it's sort of and that character of who Ressler was as a kid. So that was sort of like, of course, John Bokenkamp is great at sort of pulling the ace card and saying, "What about?" And it's like, "Yeah, yep, you're right. Thank you, sir."
Yeah, I don't know if an emotional flashback would work with sabotage. Although it might be great.
It's not the most conventional choice for
I like it though.
people.
Yeah, that's fun.
But you never know. We definitely went through some options, and and I think we landed on just the right tone for what we needed out of that.
Yeah.
Maybe when he's digging the grave and burying the body, you get some sabotage and gets into the motion. Dig faster.
I will say, in terms of favorite scenes, I absolutely love Mahesh, the director of this episode, and shout out to the excellent job that he did. But specifically, sort of the empty field, the headlights of the car, burying the body. I mean, how visceral those scenes are, and the decision that young Robbie has to make to kill this guy is great. I mean, it really is good. And I loved how that stuff turned out. When we started seeing some of that footage, it was really everybody was impressed by how we knew. I mean, when it was all rolling in and we started to see sort of Anthony's performance and what he was doing with the character and how good those young actors turned out to be, we knew we had a home run.
Oh, his "I'm not an idiot" moment was great.
Yes,
not an idiot.
And that is a satisfying punch that comes just after the first visit to the greenhouse. That really felt like, ooh, the story needs that. just Ressler's been holding on to that punch for 35 minutes now. He needs to let loose.
Well, the true reviews of the fandom are in. So we have Dee Elliott, great episode, even with no red. PK Horner, great episode, well done. Sean, you really did a great job. This episode is by far from Ariana. People love the ending convo with Liz, right? One of the best speeches ever by Megan. I mean, just real good praise for this episode all around. And I think this was my favorite because you gotta have some conspiracy theorists out there somewhere. And they're like, maybe that suitcase from Tandy Farms is really Tommy Markin.
It's as a show, there's such a wealth of stuff. There's so much serialized content. There's so many elements and so many plates that we keep spinning. I mean, I think it's what brings viewers and fans back season after season and week after week. But to get to take a little Don Ressler vacation to Detroit for one night with him, if fans are willing to follow us down that road and have a good time like we did making it, then you know that we're doing the right thing, and it's really rewarding. It really is.
And I love that we took the time to actually rearrange these episodes and make this one tonight and then Roy Kane next week, because I think it gives us the breath we need before these final 2 episodes of season 7. It's just going to be, all out for the next 2 weeks, and then whatever happens with 719, this magical episode that everybody's been working so hard to put together. I mean, I can only imagine what we're in for these last 2 weeks.
There's some great stuff coming up. As with everyone's favorite show out there, we got cut short because of what's going on out in the world, and the minute that we can be back at it for everybody, and we can get that writers' room back together on the West Coast and get our amazing production crew back together in New York, we're going to be really charging into season 8 to make everybody happy. We got a little cutoff there. We shot as long as we could to get as much content filmed so that we could give you guys as satisfying as possible finale for this season. Obviously, outside of everybody's hands in terms of what's going on out there. But I know that our writers' room and our crew, our hardworking crew in New York, everyone's staying safe as possible through all of this. And I guess we're all ready to be back. Hopefully as soon as we can to make more Blacklist, because I think that everybody is really proud of this product. And if everyone's ready for more, there will be more just as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think it'll be great when it all comes out, because regardless of how it ends this year, it ends this year, right? It's 2 episodes. It is what it is, but it just means season 8 is going to be just that much more exciting because there's still story to tell from this season, plus whatever we were going to break for next season. And man, season 8's going to be.
It's. I mean, just the kind of Oh, it's exciting for the hardcore fans. The things that we had ready that we didn't get a chance to film just for the end of this season, and that was only a few more episodes worth of content. It's good. It's exciting. We haven't forgotten those ideas. We didn't get a chance to shoot them yet. We're holding on to that stuff, and we'll find the right places for it. And it's just gonna make season 8 even more of a roller coaster. It can't wait.
Well, I want to say thanks for this episode. Like I love when I can watch one. You know, when you're doing a podcast about it, a lot of times you're watching it and you're just trying to take mental notes so you remember like stuff. I got lost in this one, which is always a compliment. Like, I mean, not that I don't get lost in the show here and there, but this one I was really just engrossed with it the entire time, and I was fascinated to hear this backstory.
This was a great one. It really felt special, and hopefully for all those big Ressler fans out there, we did them, did them solid and a good service to finally get to fill this piece of the ever expanding puzzle in. But it was a long time coming, and I think that it's an extremely satisfying answer to a long running Blacklist mystery, and hopefully made everybody happy and also entertaining.
Very. Can I make a special request when you're writing the next year?
Please.
I don't know if you can do it, but just if you can you write in something where someone messes up Diego's hair? It's very, very important to me because his hair never moves. I don't care what his action scene is. I don't care who's beating the snot out of him. That hair is pristine.
Megan promised us back in season 4 she would do it. So you just got to have her come up and just a little tussle on the head there.
The secret to John Ressler that no one knows about yet is that the hair is bulletproof. And
I think so.
It is one of his secret weapons, that it just deflects gunfire. And so don't worry, the reveal's to come.
Just corn. Remember, he was running through that cornfield and it didn't move in that cornfield in season 3.
Doesn't move. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Sean, this has been great. Thanks so much for taking the time out to do this. I know you guys have busy schedules. You guys are all working together hard to finish 719 for the fans, and just super glad that you're on the mothership. Hopefully we can get the Robbie Donnie spinoff going.
I'd love it. I'd be ready to go. Just spend more time with Anthony Michael Hall. No, it was. Thank you guys for having me. This was great. I love being able to talk about this one. It really, really is. It's a great fun episode. And yeah, for everybody out there listening, and we got 2 more great episodes coming up. Please enjoy. And Blacklist will return. Just as soon as we can get back to it. Keep making more stuff for you guys.
And we'll cross our fingers we can get you the season premiere next year as well.
Yes. That would be great. I'd be excited. Knock on wood.
Remember, hair. That's the only thing. It's literally all I care about. I don't really care about Red's mystery anymore. I want Ressler's hair messed up.
It's in the cold open for the season premiere. Right? Donald's hair blows in wind. We pan out.
The season of the dew.
So good. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow Sean and everybody at Blacklist Room on Twitter. You can follow Aaron at Aaron Smirks. I'm at Troy Heinrichs. And of course, we are The Blacklist Exposed. That's at The Blacklist GSM. Head on over to theblacklistexposed.com. Podcast already is up and running, and you'll be good to go. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. And hopefully we can see you next week for Roy Kane. If not, we will definitely be back with Mr. Bokenkamp for the finale. So make sure you stay here, subscribed on YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell, all the fun stuff, and we'll see you next week. Bing ding.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
Appreciate it.
Have a great night. Stay safe, stay well, stay home.
Yep.